What if a routine landing at one of America's busiest airports suddenly turned into a nightmare? A single warning, a split-second decision, and within moments, the entire airport is on high alert. Air traffic controllers scramble to clear the runway, emergency vehicles race into position, and the pilots have only seconds to decide what happens next. Every sound you'll hear is based on real aviation procedures, and every move follows realistic flight simulation. Stay with us until the end to see whether this crew can bring the aircraft safely to the ground in this intense X-Plane 11 realistic simulation. What if everything looked completely normal, until one warning light changed everything? It is a calm evening at New York's LaGuardia Airport. The runway lights stretch into the distance, aircraft are landing one after another, and air traffic controllers are managing dozens of flights without interruption. Passengers inside today's regional jet are relaxed. Some are looking out of the windows at the bright city lights, others are checking their phones, while a few have already fallen asleep, expecting a routine arrival. No one on board has any idea that in just a few minutes, this flight will become the center of attention across the entire airport. Welcome to this realistic X-Plane 11 simulation inspired by real-world aviation procedures. Every decision, every radio call, and every emergency response is based on how professional pilots and air traffic controllers are trained to react in critical situations. As the aircraft begins its descent toward LaGuardia, the captain reviews the approach one final time. Landing checklist. The first officer carefully confirms every item. Landing gear, down. 3 green. Flaps, set. Landing checklist complete. Everything appears perfect. The weather is cool, visibility is excellent, and only a gentle crosswind moves across the runway. Air traffic control clears the aircraft to continue the approach. The aircraft slowly descends through 2,000 feet. Outside the cockpit, New York shines beneath the evening sky. Cars move like tiny streams of light across highways. The skyline glows in the distance while the airport becomes larger with every passing second. Inside the cabin, the flight attendants take their jump seats. Ladies and gentlemen, we have begun our final approach into LaGuardia Airport. Please ensure your seatbelts are securely fastened. Passengers hear the familiar announcement and barely pay attention. For most of them, this is just another ordinary flight. But inside the cockpit, the pilots remain fully focused. Every instrument is monitored. Every altitude is confirmed. Every airspeed is checked. 1,000 feet above the runway. Stable. 800 feet. Everything still looks normal. The runway lights are perfectly aligned ahead. The aircraft continues descending smoothly. Then, a small caution message suddenly appears on one of the cockpit displays. It isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. Just a single indication. The captain notices it immediately. Did you see that? The first officer looks at the display. I've got it. For a few seconds, both pilots remain silent. They continue flying the aircraft while carefully checking the engine instruments. Nothing seems unusual. Engine power remains normal. Fuel flow appears normal. Temperatures are within limits. The warning disappears. The captain keeps his eyes on the runway. It might have been a sensor. The first officer nods. Let's continue monitoring. The approach remains stable. 700 feet. Passengers remain completely unaware. The cabin is quiet. Some travelers begin collecting their bags from beneath the seats, expecting touchdown within moments. Outside, airport rescue crews continue their normal standby operations. Fire trucks wait at their stations. Ground crews guide departing aircraft. Everything appears completely routine. Then suddenly, the warning returns. this time accompanied by a master caution. A sharp tone fills the cockpit. The first officer immediately scans the display. The captain keeps flying. Aircraft control first. I've got the warning. The caution now indicates an abnormal engine parameter. Still. The engine is producing thrust. No smoke. No vibration. No fire indication. The pilots quickly compare every engine instrument. One side begins showing slightly unusual readings. Not enough to confirm a failure, but enough to raise concern. Altitude now. 500 feet. The runway grows larger. Decision time is approaching. The captain speaks calmly. If anything changes, we're going around. The first officer agrees immediately. Understood. Every airline crew trains for moments exactly like this. There is no panic. No guessing. Only procedures. 400 feet. The caution remains active. Engine performance becomes slightly inconsistent. Not dangerous, but no longer completely normal. The captain refuses to take unnecessary risks. Go around. The first officer instantly responds. Go around. Maximum thrust is commanded. The aircraft begins climbing away from the runway instead of landing. Passengers feel the engine suddenly become louder. The nose rises. Several passengers exchange confused looks. One child asks his mother, "Why aren't we landing?" The mother smiles. It's probably normal. Inside the cockpit, the workload increases dramatically. Positive rate. Gear up. Landing gear retracts. Air traffic control immediately notices the unexpected maneuver. Regional Flight 452, confirm going around. The first officer replies calmly. Affirmative, Flight 452 is going around due to a cockpit indication. The controller responds instantly. Roger Flight 452, climb and maintain 3,000 feet. Fly runway heading. The aircraft safely climbs away from the airport. Inside the control tower, supervisors begin paying closer attention. Nothing has been declared yet. But whenever an aircraft abandons a landing because of an abnormal indication, controllers automatically prepare for the possibility of an emergency. The captain finally has a moment to breathe. Let's run the checklist. The first officer opens the quick reference handbook. Step by step. No shortcuts. Every item is confirmed. Every switch is verified. The abnormal indication remains. Still no fire. Still no severe vibration. Still no complete engine failure. But the readings are becoming increasingly unreliable. The captain contacts air traffic control again. LaGuardia Tower, Flight 452 requests vectors while we troubleshoot. Flight 452, turn right heading 080. The aircraft begins circling away from the airport. Below them, hundreds of people continue their normal evening. Few realize that one aircraft overhead is carefully evaluating whether it is safe to return. Meanwhile, airport operations quietly begin preparing. Fire rescue units receive notification. Medical teams are informed to stand by. Additional emergency vehicles move closer to the runway. No sirens. No panic. Just professional preparation. Inside the cabin, another announcement is made. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. During our approach we received an indication requiring additional checks. Everything is under control. As a precaution, we'll remain airborne for a short time before deciding on our next landing. Our crew is fully trained for situations like this. Please remain seated with your seat belts fastened. Passengers become noticeably quieter. Some look out the windows. Others begin wondering what happened. Most trust the calm voice of the captain. Back in the cockpit, another system message appears. This one is different. The first officer looks carefully. His expression changes. He turns toward the captain. You need to see this. The first officer looked back at the engine display for a second time. You need to see this. The captain quickly glanced at the instruments while maintaining control of the aircraft. The engine was still producing thrust, but one of the monitoring systems was now showing fluctuating oil pressure indications. Neither pilot jumped to conclusions. Modern airliners are designed with multiple backup systems, and a single warning does not always mean an engine has failed. Still, unusual indications during flight can never be ignored. The captain kept his voice calm. Let's continue with the abnormal checklist. The first officer opened the quick reference handbook once again. Every step was completed slowly. Every indication was cross-checked. Outside the cockpit, the aircraft continued climbing through 3,000 feet before leveling off over the water east of LaGuardia. The evening skyline of New York stretched across the horizon. Inside the cabin, passengers could feel the aircraft making gentle turns as it entered a holding pattern. Many began looking out of the windows. Some quietly wondered why they had not landed. Others assumed they were waiting for traffic. Only the flight attendants had been informed that the pilots were troubleshooting a technical indication. Even then, there was no panic. The cabin crew continued smiling and reassuring passengers that everything was under control. Back in the cockpit, the first officer completed the final item on the checklist. The indication remains. The captain nodded. We're not taking unnecessary chances. He pressed the radio switch. LaGuardia approach, Flight 452 would like to declare Pan due to an abnormal engine indication. We are requesting priority handling and vectors for an immediate return. The controller answered almost instantly. Flight 452, Pan acknowledged. You have priority. Turn left heading 290 and descend to 2,500 feet. Expect runway 22. Every nearby aircraft immediately heard the transmission. Controllers began spacing traffic farther apart. Several departures were temporarily delayed. Arriving aircraft were instructed to enter holding patterns. Within minutes, one runway had effectively been reserved for Flight 452. Meanwhile, airport rescue teams moved closer to their standby positions. Large fire trucks rolled toward the taxiways. Medical teams positioned themselves nearby. Airport operations coordinated with the control tower. Everything was done quietly and professionally. No sirens. No confusion. Just preparation. The captain briefed the approach. If the engine remains stable, we'll continue. If anything changes below minimum safe altitude, we'll discontinue immediately. The first officer agreed. Understood. As the aircraft turned back toward LaGuardia, the sun had almost disappeared below the horizon. Runway lights shined brightly against the evening sky. The airport looked peaceful. But inside the cockpit, concentration was at its highest level. Every instrument was being monitored continuously. Fuel quantity. Hydraulic pressure. Electrical systems. Flight controls. Navigation. Everything else remained completely normal. Only that one engine indication continued fluctuating. The captain made another passenger announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. As a precaution, we will be returning to LaGuardia shortly. The aircraft remains fully controllable, and our crew has completed all required safety procedures. We appreciate your patience and ask that everyone remain seated with seatbelts securely fastened. His calm voice made a noticeable difference. Passengers relaxed. Several even applauded quietly after hearing the announcement. The flight attendants performed one final cabin inspection. Seatbelts checked. Carry-on baggage secured. Emergency exits verified. Cabin ready. The lead flight attendant contacted the cockpit. The cabin is secure. Thank you. The captain reduced speed. Flaps were selected gradually. Landing data was confirmed one final time. Outside, the runway slowly came into view. Air traffic control transmitted calmly. Flight 452, wind 210 at 8 knots. Runway 22 cleared to land. Emergency equipment is standing by. Cleared to land runway 22. The aircraft descended through 2,000 feet. Everything remained stable. The warning had not disappeared. But it had also not become worse. 1,000 feet. Stable. The aircraft remained perfectly aligned with the runway. 900 feet. 800. The captain gently adjusted the thrust. The first officer monitored every engine parameter. Still steady. 600 feet. 500. Runway lights appeared brighter than ever. Passengers silently looked forward. Some gripped the armrests. Others simply trusted the crew. 400 feet. The captain remained completely focused. 300. 200. The aircraft crossed the runway threshold. Power slowly reduced. The landing gear touched the runway with a firm but controlled touchdown. A small puff of tire smoke rose behind the wheels. Reverse thrust was applied carefully. The aircraft slowed smoothly. No sudden movements. No loss of control. Just a professional landing. Inside the control tower, controllers watched closely as the aircraft rolled down the runway. Fire trucks followed from a safe distance. After slowing to taxi speed, the captain brought the aircraft to a complete stop for a brief inspection. Airport rescue crews visually checked both engines. Within moments they reported. Tower, no visible smoke, no fire, no fluid leaks. The controller smiled. Flight 452, rescue vehicles report your aircraft appears normal. You may taxi to the gate when ready. The captain finally allowed himself a small smile. Thank you everyone. Passengers inside the cabin had no idea how much preparation had taken place behind the scenes. To them, it had simply been a delayed landing. As the aircraft slowly taxied toward the terminal, emergency vehicles peeled away one by one. Ground crews waved the aircraft forward.